In this video, we'll be taking a look at why this chart at this level is the most important for you to be looking at in the markets for the week ahead. We'll also be talking about our technical analysis levels for the S&P 500, NASDAQ, Bitcoin, Tesla, gold, silver, and more. Last week was all about crazy cryptocurrency crashing and, of course, illiquidity. The question is, ahead of a decent week here in the stock market, are we going to see some big returns? Stay tuned. All right, guys, well, as we like to do, we usually look at the performance through Friday, but we'll take a look at that in just a second. I just wanted to show you the weekly performance of the heat map of the S&P 500, and instantly you see an absolute mixed bag. Some sectors, such as semiconductors, are clearly back in focus here, and we actually saw them starting to move before we saw huge moves in the NASDAQ last time through the bigger FANG stocks, so that's an interesting one to be looking at. Other than that, everything else was up, down, and all around. We had Apple at one point green, then it went red again. We had Amazon, Microsoft, all these others. And you'll notice that it really just wasn't one particular sector that was like glorious other than the semiconductors. If we click over here and have a look at the Friday trade, you'll see here that every single thing started green in the mornings and then sold off. And it did sell off into heavy support, especially the NASDAQ. So we'll be taking a look at that later because I think it's hit a critical zone that everyone needs to be looking at in the market for the week ahead. We also have here, of course, the actual sectors, and you'll notice XLK and XLY, the technology and consumer discretionary areas, they both were the worst for the day, and they usually run together. Surprisingly, we had utilities coming in second here, and financials, which is usually run with energy being at the top. And you'll see that the normal 4-hit combo, XLB, XLE, XLI, and XLF, all close to the top there for the Friday session. Nothing much we can really probably scrape from that information, but I did want to talk about Memorial Day weekend, which of course is next weekend in the US, because usually when you've got a lead up to a public holiday, and that public holiday usually takes out, like, of course, a Monday of trade, basically we see a change of returns here in the market, and it's usually a positive return, especially on the Friday. So the week ahead is a very important zone ahead of these kind of things. Now, if you were trading Thanksgiving, that is traditionally a very positive week ahead of Thanksgiving. So we want to know about the Thursday, we want to know about the Friday. And why do we bring this up? It's because when we're looking at the market, if you add that into your already existing price action, let's say you're sitting here on a Thursday, sitting at support, and the market's looking strong, then you know that statistically the Friday session might be positive, usually, like very heavily geared towards the positive. So you can bring that into your already existing price action based plans and say, okay, I'm not going to use that but I'm going to use it as an add-on addition to say, yes, I feel even more confident in this trade. It's amazing how those little things can add up and stack in your favor. Let's get started here for our weekly analysis for the week ahead and talk about the dollar index, because I think this is a really important zone that we're looking at here in the dollar index. So if you draw like kind of a trend line that goes through these highs, instantaneously, what are you going to see? You're going to see that we've been selling off this point. This is an 8-hour chart, and 8-hour charts are well worth using in the markets. You'll also notice that we're finding some support here at the 89.70 zone. Now, if we break underneath this and we close underneath this, basically the dollar will continue its resumption down, and of course that should mean risk on in the stock markets, where money flows out of the US dollar as it becomes a less desired asset, and that money goes into things such as the stock market. Here we've got potentially a little double bottom. Some people will be looking at this and saying, oh, we've found support, Tom, we've found a level. And I can definitely understand that. I mean, if of course you break through here, you break through the trend line, we could start an upwards momentum move. And that's something that we'll be looking at. And day by day, we'll check this on the channel. Make sure to subscribe if you want to follow us on that. But if it does reject again off this zone, where do we expect it to go? Well, of course, 89.20, and then underneath there, serious things happen to the dollar index, because if we go back over to a weekly here, you'll notice a big drop off to 88.251, and then of course a huge drop off potential to 84. So we've got very critical supports coming up here for the dollar index. For now, it's in a downtrend, and you can use this trend line. I think it's quite good at being able to kind of predict the high points through the week. Let's go and take a look at gold now, because gold was a super interesting trade over the last couple of weeks. We've been following this bullish ever since down here. So literally when we started seeing this consolidation, we started covering gold heavily on the channel, and rightfully so. It was a great bullish sign that the bottom was in, and this is something we'd use in any stock, and we'd use it in pretty much anything in the markets. Double bottoms mean something, especially when they come off key supports. So we've had kind of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of movements here. You can see the pullbacks and how they occurred. We're at another critical juncture. 1890 is the point. And 1890, once we close through that, a lot of people are going to have these theoretical ideas of, oh, I'm going to take profit at 1900. I think it's less likely that gold takes profit at 1900 and actually starts going through potentially up to this 1930 zone first. And there's a reason why. You look at the left, how many times did it really stop at 1900? Not that often recently. It's usually stopped at 1930 or 1960. So we had this long leg doji last week. We still haven't actually been able to break either to the top or the bottom side. And I think this is super critical. We've got great support behind gold right now, 200 daily SMA, the green line here, and a 20 moving average catching up behind it as well. So even if we got a flash sell off to here, again, I think buying support would be there. Let's go down to a 2-hour chart and have a look at gold, see what we can see in the price action. Firstly, higher lows. Even here, didn't quite make a new low. It was basically the exact same level. Again, signifying there is bullish strength here in gold. It's just probably waiting for the US dollar to get weaker. 1890 is the resistance. Look at this rejection we got through the last session. You can see that. Imagine if we close higher than here, guys. Not only should we go to 1900, but I think we could even go next stop 1930 into the 1960s. Gold's looking good. Series of higher lows. We continue to watch it, and as long as that sequence doesn't get broken, things are good. I would specifically be watching this level here, which is around this 1870 for the week ahead. Cool stuff there on the shiny metal. Let's move over to silver. So quite a lot of silver bulls on the channel as well. I think this is an interesting one because we've got a couple of differential kind of things going on. Firstly, we have that silver squeeze. Do we have a trend line that comes through here, or at least this 20 moving average on the daily that's super important? I would say yes, it's important that it does hold through this zone. And I would like to see silver start to find some further strength. So you'll see it almost kind of weakened off there, hit that 20 or hit that trend line through the Friday session. And I don't know if I'm bullish on silver again until it gets through up here. So I want to see it actually above this high with a close, 28 plus closure, significant time frame. So probably 4-hour plus we need here. Once that occurs, we shouldn't be able to go and make new highs, considering the coiling or the structure that we've formed in the market. Super important zone, well worth looking at. Let's now go over to BTC, as a lot of people are covering Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies right now. We've still got our trend line through these spikes here, where basically things have been unable to get through. I always use horizontal lines more, so we'll just remove that quickly. And I want to talk about these horizontal lines. It's clear, like with gold before, which is why I brought it up, that we're trying to form a structure down here. We had that break down to 30,000. That was, of course, an incredible sell-off caused by illiquidity. We've had a retest that happened through the Friday, late Friday into Saturday session. And this is just showing that it's taking out leverage stop losses. So there would have been heaps of people buying back in here, and they would have been trying to get their money back. Now, what's basic human psychology, guys? If we're trying to get our money back and we're taking leverage positions, we feel all good here, then it shakes us out, then we feel even better. And you know what people do? They invest back in heavily here. Why do they invest back in heavily here? Because they feel like it's all going to go good very, very quickly. Then what happens? The initial or the final shakeout occurs where it gets underneath that point as well, takes out everybody's stop losses, and then starts to form structure as it tries to return back up. I'm not thinking that Bitcoin is completely over here. I just think that it's a very interesting sequence of absolutely taking advantage of basic human mentality. I know heaps of people that invested here. I don't know why they were, but they were. And yeah, we knew that this support was going to act as resistance. This 42K, 42.5 is important. And I think until you close above here, you can't really think that cryptocurrency has gotten out of this entire sell-off structure that's occurring. Because once it gets above there, what are we doing? We're kind of creating a double bottom. Now, why do I say that? Because I'm going to ignore a bit of this candle. And the reason I would ignore this candle is because we know it happened during illiquidity. It could be kind of like fake price. But I won't ignore the structure that's forming around this zone here. And this is around this 36, 35K. So I would love to see, of course, now a new high. Let's go down to the 2 hour. And this really will be the same kind of thing that you do in stocks as well, guys. Same kind of principles. I would love to see this now snap a new high. And I think at that point, we can go back to the 42,000. And then if we get through 42, 42 and a half with a closure, we should be in for some nice moves back in the cryptocurrency as it stabilizes across the board. BTC is the one I'm watching right now. Every other coin is inconsequential to what this one does. This is the standards, like the S&P 500. You need to continue watching it. Now, speaking of stock markets, let's go over and take a quick look at Tesla. So Tesla couldn't quite get through the 600 through the Friday session as it started strong, almost hit it, and then weakened throughout the session. Here's the resistance. This is still an incredibly important zone. I want at least a 4 hour plus closure above 600. And I think the cool thing about that is once that occurs, we've basically created our bottoming structure here, and we should be able to get our move up to the 660. Now, Tesla bulls will be happy if that does occur. They've been in for quite a few bad months really here, but 660, I think it's actually 666 will be where the resistance is, and I'm looking for a closure above here. We'll have to see how the NASDAQ plays out for the week ahead for this one. It's really a day by day for Tesla because it's super important it closed above this 20 exponential on the 4 hour. That's that red line. Let's move over to the US 100 because this is that critical point. So we theorized on the Friday session. This is the live session, also the video that we did, that things were getting bullish again in the stock market. And I guess we still have to be looking at the price action here and what's it's telling us. It's telling us it pulled back to the conservative entry. That's great news. For Monday-based traders, it's a super important day because we have our support through 13.4, support, resistance, breakout, movement back, and now finding support. Let's have a quick look at how the actual session played out. So here's the 1 hour, and you'll notice how it was interacting with this zone. It clearly cares about this area. Let's just quickly pull it down here and think about day traders. What are they going to be looking for through the Monday session? Well, they're going to be looking for a closure above here and therefore a miniature double bottom to be put in on the NASDAQ so it can move up. If we actually take the distance, and I haven't done this and it's not going to prove correctly, but basically you would take the distance from here for a day trader and they would extrapolate it out. Now, because you have resistances higher, a lot of people would be taking profit somewhere around this kind of zone, this 13,553. So that'll be an area just to watch for the session if we do start to break out. But I'm looking at this little double bottom on the 15 minute, and I'll be looking at that very closely because to me, this is showing the turn in the markets towards that bull side. If we move over here to the QQQ, it's the exact same setup. But of course, this is happening during real volume, during the real market. 328 kind of zone, we're looking for a closure above that. Beautiful looking chart. Again, the supports, the resistances. You cannot ignore this. For the bear side, of course, we plunge back under this on the daily, while that is a false break. And yeah, from a price action based standpoint, that would suck. But if you're trading this conservatively, you've always got two choices. Remember, you can take the break with a percentage and get in. Or you can say, okay, well, I actually believe in the long now, but I want to see a little bit more. You wait for the pullback to occur, and then you either wait for the double bottom pattern similar to this, or you wait for the lightning bolt that we always talk about in the channel. So it's at a critical point. It's looking way more bullish than bearish. And that's because effectively what we're doing here is we're putting in a low. We're putting in a zone where the market has said, you know what, we've found this area twice. We've rejected it. We've closed above. We've pulled back, and now we're ready for the next move back up to this 340 level on the QQQ or NASDAQ. This is the zones that we're looking at in the markets right now. Does this make sense to the S&P 500? I think it makes perfect sense when we take a look at this 2-hour chart. Again, S&P 500 was the only trigger that we didn't have on Friday, which is an important trigger, don't get me wrong, that wasn't saying bullish. It was saying we need to wait for the 4180 to be closed against. And we mentioned this on the channel, and I'd love to see this closed for bulls this week because basically we have supports down here. We have our resistances. You can see it clearly. This is the real market, not the futures. Don't trade the fake futures, guys. Always use the real market. So SPY or SPX codes. And you'll notice here resistance, resistance. Let's get a closure above that. That closure will then basically signify that this low is in for now and that we're ready to move to all-time highs. Does 42.40 matter that much anymore? I think it's kind of inconsequential to this overall pullback and where it went to. And again, is this the pullback we were looking for? Not quite. It was on the NASDAQ. That was the kind of zone we hoped for. But this did come back to a 50 exponential on the daily, and you can see this blue line, how important that zone's been across the whole thing. So it looks bullish. I'm looking for a 41.80 plus close. Again, rejections of this will be negative. I'd probably go to the NASDAQ to find that rejection of the 13,400 zone. And then whether you want to sell IWM, whether you want to sell the Russell, the NASDAQ, or the S&P would be your pick. I mean, basically that would be showing bears are back in control of the market. When we also take a look here, you'll notice that IWM's in the middle of nowhere. This is the Russell 2000. Very hard to trade right now. You basically be just taking a signal for the S&P 500 on NASDAQ and then applying it to this one and saying, okay, rather than me trading the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, I want to trade Russell, and you'll get a higher percentage move either way. However, of course, it's higher percentage, so it means it's usually more risk. When we take a look at the week ahead for news and we scroll back through here for the news, you'll notice that Monday we've actually got a whole bunch of bank holidays throughout the Eurozone. You can see here French, German, and CAD bank holidays. We keep scrolling through. Nothing too red here through the news. Got prelim GDP, whatever. And then you keep scrolling through and you keep going. And then you'll notice, of course, the Monday session, you've got bank holiday here in the US. So that's what we're talking about. That's the Memorial Day event. And then, of course, because that is the public holiday in the US, what happens during the week before that, then we have usually some positive correlation through that Thursday, Friday session. Specifically, the Friday session is usually positive leading into that weekend. Look, it's super interesting stuff in the markets this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to subscribe, smash that like button if you enjoy it, and we'll either see you in the public Discord community, private community, or of course live 1.5 hours early before the New York Open. It's going to be a massive banger Monday. Good luck, everyone. Have a great weekend. Speak to you soon.